Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a short but seriously profound ancient text narrated by a figure named Markandeya. We are going to explore a completely timeless human dynamic, the psychology of asking for help, and the ethics of giving. Honestly, it's pretty fascinating how an interaction recorded thousands of years ago holds up a perfect mirror to exactly how we operate today.
Let's dive right in. Think about this for a second. How do you feel when you have to ask someone for a favor? Whether it's asking a friend for a quick loan, asking a colleague for help on a tough project, or honestly, even just asking a stranger for directions, there's usually a bit of a barrier there, right? A slight hesitation, maybe a fear of being a burden. Keep that exact feeling in the back of your mind as we walk through today's story, because that deeply human hesitation is the absolute core of the text we're about to explore.
Section 1. A King and a Promise. Let's set the stage and meet our cast. We've got Markandeya as our narrator. The focal point of the whole scene is King Yayati, the son of Nahusha, sitting squarely on his throne. And he isn't alone. He's completely surrounded by his citizens, holding court in a very public, very formal setting. Now into this highly intimidating, crowded royal space walks a Brahmana. This Brahmana is our petitioner, and he's approaching the king because he desperately needs to solicit wealth.
To really get what's at stake here, we need to look at the specific words the Brahmana uses. He tells the king that he's begging for wealth specifically for his preceptor because of a covenant. So a preceptor is a teacher or instructor, and a covenant is a formal binding promise. The Brahmana isn't just asking for casual pocket change for himself to go buy lunch. He is bound by a strict, formal duty to provide for his teacher. The pressure is on. He literally has no choice but to ask the king for this wealth to fulfill this sacred agreement.
So, the Brahmana steps up and states he needs wealth to fulfill this covenant, and King Yayati immediately welcomes the request. He says, "O Holy One, tell me what thy covenant is." It's an open, welcoming response. The king is totally ready to hear the details. But here is where the story takes a fascinating turn. Instead of just blurting out a number or immediately asking for the cash, the petitioner hesitates. He completely pauses the transaction to address the massive emotional elephant in the room.
Section 2. The Fear of Contempt.
This is where it gets incredibly relatable. Before even asking for the wealth, the Brahmana makes this brilliant observation about human nature. He says, "In this world when men are asked for alms, they entertain contempt for him that asketh it." I mean, wow. This is exactly that universal hesitation we talked about at the very beginning. The Brahmana is just verbalizing the hidden judgment that people face when asking for charity. He knows that when you ask someone for something, the giver often secretly looks down on the asker. The giver feels superior, and the asker is made to feel small, desperate, or annoying.
Because he's so terrified of being looked down upon, the Brahmana makes an incredibly bold move. He directly challenges the most powerful man in the room. He asks the king, "With what feelings thou wilt give me what I ask and upon which I have set my heart?" That takes some guts. He is essentially demanding an emotional audit from the king. He's saying, "Look, before I tell you what I need, and before a single coin changes hands, I need to know your internal emotional state. Are you going to judge me? Are you going to give me this wealth but secretly hate me for asking?" He wants to make absolutely sure his dignity remains intact before he accepts anything.
Section 3. The Philosophy of Giving.
So we have this massive thematic contrast going on. We're juxtaposing the deep anxiety of the asker with the virtue of the giver. The Brahmana walked in expecting hidden contempt, right? But King Yayati's reality is completely different. The king operates on a foundation of joyful giving, completely devoid of those toxic power dynamics the Brahmana is so afraid of.
Yayati responds by laying out his personal four-part royal standard for giving. This breaks down exactly how he protects the dignity of anyone who begs from him. Number 1. Having given away a thing, I never boast of it. He totally removes his ego from the charity. Number 2, he doesn't entertain the impossible. He ignores solicitations for things that just cannot be given, which keeps his boundaries crystal clear. Number 3, I listen, however, to prayers for things that can be given, and giving them away, I always become happy. He finds actual joy in the act of providing. And number 4, which is probably the most important one for our anxious Brahmana, he never becomes angry with the person begging and is never sorry for having given something away. No buyer's remorse whatsoever, no lingering resentment.
And then the king goes even further to reassure his guest. He declares, "The Brahmana that asks me for a gift is always dear to me." King Yayati is entirely flipping the script on the power dynamic of charity here. He's telling the petitioner that asking for a gift doesn't create resentment or annoyance. It actually creates endearment. The act of asking allows the king to fulfill his joyful duty of giving, which makes the asker genuinely precious to him.
Section 4. The 1,000 Kine. So, we finally reach the climax of the story, the literal payoff where King Yayati proves his philosophical claims aren't just empty words. Satisfied with the king's pure intentions, the Brahmana finally reveals what he needs for his covenant. And Yayati, he grants the request instantly, promising an overwhelming gift of 1,000.
1,000 what, exactly? 1,000 kine. Just to make sure we're firmly anchored in the text here, kine is an old-school term used as the plural for cows or cattle. Now, to put that into perspective, in the context of this ancient world, 1,000 cows represents a massive, staggering transfer of wealth. This isn't just a polite token gesture to make the guy go away, that's a life-changing amount of resources provided to completely fulfill the Brahmana's covenant to his preceptor.
And that brings us to the resolution of our text, which is beautifully simple. The Brahmana then obtained from the king 1,000 kine and went away. It's such a clean, perfect ending to what started as a really complex emotional negotiation. The Brahmana secures the huge amount of wealth required for his teacher, and he gets to walk away without suffering a single ounce of the contempt he was originally so terrified of. The king's philosophy actually worked in practice, not just in theory. The wealth was transferred, sure, but way more importantly, the dignity of the asker was entirely preserved.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to chew on. We spend so much time worrying about how we look when we ask for help. But what about when we are on the other side of the equation? When you give to others, whether it's your time, your money, or your expertise, do you give with strings of hidden contempt and judgment attached? Or do you give with the joyful, ego-free freedom of King Yayati? The next time someone approaches you for a favor, remember this ancient text and ask yourself, how do you want them to feel when they walk away?